The day I won the global competition's newcomer, my fiancé Marcus returned from the conflict. At the family dinner, he held a delicate, pretty nurse by the hand and tossed the engagement token in front of me. Tiffany saved my life. These past few years in the military, she's been with me the whole time. She waited for me for 5 years, and I can't let her down. Grace, let's break off our engagement. I clutched the engagement token tightly, my whole body stiff. He had forgotten that we were childhood sweethearts, growing up together. For his dream of serving in the military, I had waited a full 8 years for him. Yet, what I waited for was him holding someone else's hand, telling me he couldn't let down another girl's 5 years of youth. My heart turned to ashes, and I turned around and agreed to an arranged marriage. But later, as my military officer husband and I lived a happy life, he cried, saying he regretted it. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. The day I won the global competition's newcomer, my parents smiled and said they had a mysterious grand gift prepared for me. My heart fluttered with excitement, and I vaguely guessed that Marcus must have returned. 5 years ago, to achieve his ideals and ambitions, Marcus voluntarily applied to join a peacekeeping mission. At the time, we had just gotten engaged. Before he left, Marcus personally placed on my finger the engagement ring crafted from a shell casing that he had made for me. Gracie, when I return, I promise to give you a lavish wedding. For 5 years, I couldn't stop missing him, and I mentioned by phone more than once that I wanted to see him, even if only for a moment. But he said that the country where the peacekeeping mission was stationed was ravaged by war and too dangerous. He couldn't bear for me to suffer even the slightest harm. Gracie, stay home and be good. Wait for me to come back and marry you. To be RTHY of his profound devotion, I suppressed my longing for these 5 years and dedicated all my energy to my career. The day I won my first design competition's gold award, I personally took the star from the top of the trophy, melted it down, and made a pair of wedding rings. I arranged for these specially meaningful wedding rings to be delivered to Marcus. I thought he would understand my intention. I was hoping for his safe return soon. Then, he would use these wedding rings to propose to me. But now, he had tossed these wedding rings in front of me, as if they were trash. Grace, these past 5 years, you've ignored me back home. Tiffany, on the other hand, has been by my side through thick and thin. She waited for me for 5 years, and I can't let her down. I looked at him in disbelief, roaring in a controlled fury, Marcus, but I waited for you for 8 years. In these 8 years, from home to abroad, I told you more than once that I wanted to be with you, but what did you do? You told me to stay home and wait for you, and now you're blaming me for not coming to you? Nurse stepped forward at the opportune moment, her expression displeased as she accused me, Ms. Grace, a hothouse flower like you, who's never been to a conflict zone, will never know how brutal a conflict zone is. For 5 years, Marcus and I faced life and death together, walking the line between life and death countless times. How could a man who has seen a fiery rose like me ever like a hothouse flower like you? I respected the medical personnel involved in international medical aid and didn't want to argue with Tiffany. I just stared stubbornly at Marcus. Are you sure you want to break off our engagement? William suddenly slammed his hand on the table. Marcus, you bastard. Do you still remember that you and Gracie are engaged? Eleanor, too, was shaking with rage. Marcus, is this how I raised you? Engaged and still involved with another woman, how can you face Gracie? I clenched my fists tightly, the wedding rings almost digging into my palms. Marcus looked away guiltily, but his voice was firm as he said, I never forgot my engagement to Gracie. But that year, I contracted a deadly virus and almost died on the battlefield. Tiffany sleeplessly took care of me for half a month, pulling me back from the brink of death. Gracie, breaking off the engagement with you is my fault. Hate me, resent me, I have nothing to say. But as innocent, and I hope you don't target her, I gave a bitter smile. Only 5 years, and the man who once had eyes only for me was now protecting another woman, guarding against me like a thief. Tiffany looked at Marcus with adoration. Then she turned, like a fierce cat, and showed me her fangs. Ms. Grace, you need to understand that in a relationship, the one who isn't loved is the other woman. Marcus and I have experienced enemy bombardments together and artillery fire on the battlefield together. Our bond is something a hothouse flower like you will never understand. Ms. Grace, please give up. Your engagement with Marcus was always a mistake. Marcus watched her with indulgence. I released my grip, and the wedding rings I had personally crafted fell to the floor with a clear clink. I walked quickly to Marcus. Snap. A sharp slap landed hard on his face. If you want to break off the engagement, that's your freedom, and I don't blame you. But you knew you were engaged to me and still shamelessly cheated with another woman. That is morally bankrupt. Marcus, I slapped you for that military uniform you wear. A treacherous scoundrel like you is unworthy of wearing this uniform. Well said. William stood up, walked to Marcus in a few steps, and slapped the other side of his face, swelling it up. Tiffany let out a shriek. Uncle, Marcus just got injured. William gave her a cold look. He was injured for his country, and his country will honor him. This slap is my punishment as a father educating his son. Do you have an objection? Tiffany instantly resembled a chicken with its neck squeezed, her face flushing crimson. Marcus licked the blood from his bruised lip, then silently took Tiffany's hand and turned to leave. Grace, the engagement token has been returned to you. I hope next time we meet, we can still be friends. Friends? I laughed, tears streaming down my face. Stop. Marcus turned back impatiently. Grace, marriage is a mutual agreement. Tiffany and I are in love. What's the point of you desperately clinging on? I scoffed softly. You misunderstand. I stopped you, but not because I want to cling to you. Marcus, since we've broken up, shouldn't you return the things I gave you during our engagement? Marcus frowned slightly. What things? My mom suddenly sneered. Marcus, stop playing dumb. During your 5 years of peacekeeping mission abroad, my Gracie took the millions in personal assets we had prepared for her and used them to purchase medical supplies and daily necessities, specifically chartering a plane to send them to you. You want to break off the engagement? Fine. But that money was spent by Gracie for her fiancé. Now that you're no longer our Gracie's fiancé, you can't possibly still use her personal assets, can you? Marcus's face instantly turned ashen. Tiffany glared furiously at my mom and me. Nonsense. Those were charitable aid you insisted on donating to the conflict. Now that the supplies have been sent, why should Marcus pay you back? If you dare to be unreasonable and slander Marcus again, believe it or not, I'll blow up on social media and expose you for falsely claiming donations? I shook my head. You're wrong. Of course, I won't ask for the charitable aid back. What I want back is the $2 million check that was sent along with the supplies, and the $1 million in gold bars. In an instant, both Marcus and Tiffany's faces turned pale white. I stepped closer, saying each word distinctly. I was worried that if you encountered rebels or kidnappers abroad, we wouldn't be able to reach you in time from home. So, I sold my personal assets and gathered $2 million for you, along with $1 million in gold. Consider the charitable aid donated to refugees. I won't ask you for it back. But those checks and that gold were my personal assets. Marcus, I don't object to you falling for someone else and wanting to marry another woman. But you wouldn't use my personal assets to marry another woman, would you? My words instantly turned Marcus's face crimson. He breathed heavily, his fists clenched tight, looking at me without a word. Suddenly, Tiffany let out a choked sob. Ms. Grace, please don't push him anymore. It's all my fault. I've been providing medical aid abroad these past few years. My mom is critically ill and needs a kidney transplant, and my brother, who is rather irresponsible, was desperate to earn money for my mom's treatment and got swindled out of a large sum of money. Marcus had no choice but to lend me those checks and gold to pay off my debts. Please don't blame him. I'll find a way to pay you back all that money and gold. How will you pay it back? And for how long? I coldly interrupted her pitiful excuses. As far as I know, Ms. Tiffany is just a nurse. Based on your professional background, even if your annual salary is $200,000, how many years would it take you to save $3 million if you didn't eat or drink? Tiffany's face turned pale at my words, and she suddenly whimpered and threw herself into Marcus's arms. Marcus, I'm sorry, I'm so useless, I can't protect you. Marcus held her tenderly, his gaze at me filled with coldness and disgust. Grace, consider these $3 million a debt I owe you, and I'll find a way to pay you back. Also, don't think money can buy everything. That year, I contracted a deadly virus in the conflict. Tiffany sleeplessly took care of me for half a month, pulling me back from the brink of death. Even the doctors called it a miracle. At that time, your $3 million would have been worthless as scrap paper to me. My eyes widened, and I clenched my palms tightly, looking at Tiffany in disbelief. Are you saying that year you were infected with a deadly virus, and you recovered your life because of Tiffany's sleepless care? Impossible. It was clearly me. Tiffany suddenly shrieked. Marcus, my chest hurts so much. Marcus's expression changed, and he quickly lifted Tiffany into his arms. Grace, I'll find a way to pay you back those $3 million. My breaking off the engagement has nothing to do with Tiffany. I hope you won't make things difficult for her anymore. Otherwise, I'll make you pay. With that, Marcus strode away without hesitation, carrying Tiffany. Tiffany hid in Marcus's arms, and from an angle he couldn't see, she gave me a provocative look. I laughed bitterly. Eleanor pointed at Tiffany, shaking with rage, and swore loudly, "Marcus, if you dare marry that woman, I'll disown you." William also said coldly, "Marcus, I think your mind has been scrambled by the blasts. A deadly virus that even doctors couldn't cure, and she, a nurse, took care of you for a few days, and the virus was gone? Do you know that you survived and recovered that time because Gracie flew to Europe overnight, pulled strings everywhere, and spent a fortune to get you 3 doses of life-saving medication?" Marcus paused, casting a suspicious glance at Tiffany in his arms. Tiffany's eyes reddened, and she bit her lip hard, shaking her head frantically. "Marcus, I don't know anything about life-saving medication. The medicines I gave you were all prescription drugs from the conflict hospital." Marcus sneered. "Grace, I know my parents have always been fond of you, but you can't take advantage of that favoritism to spin lies and falsely accuse others." William was about to say more, but I walked over and stopped him. "Uncle, let them go. Marcus and I are not meant to be, but you and Aunt are still the elders I respect most." With that, I raised my wine glass and said with a smile, "Today is the day Marcus and I break off our engagement, and it's a good day to return to single life. Dear friends and family, if you have any suitable matches for an arranged marriage, please introduce them to me." I never expected that the first ones to introduce someone to me would be Marcus's parents. 2 days later, Eleanor called me. "Gracie, do you remember Caleb? He's the officer who helped you deliver the life-saving medication when Marcus contracted the virus." Of course, I remembered. That time, I bought the life-saving medication in Europe, but due to customs regulations, I couldn't bring it back home. I was frantic, pulling strings everywhere, and finally ran into Caleb, who was on a mission in Europe. When he heard that a comrade in the conflict was waiting for life-saving medication, he took the medicine without a second thought. Our last conversation was when he called me to tell me that Marcus had used the life-saving medication and had recovered. And I told him that Marcus was my fiancé. After that, Caleb never called me again. Later, I learned that Caleb was actually the son of a high-ranking officer in the military, young, with distinguished military service, and several ranks higher than Marcus. My luck was incredible to have met him and gotten the life-saving medication to Marcus in time. Now, thinking back, if I had known that the credit for those 3 doses of life-saving medication would be taken by nurse, I probably would have still sent them. As my fiancé, Marcus might have been a complete jerk, but as a soldier, he had not failed his country and its people. Those 3 doses of life-saving medication were not for personal affections, but for the greater good of the nation. Hearing that I was going on a blind date with Caleb, I specifically went to the mall to buy a gift. Last time, I left in a hurry and didn't get a chance to thank him. This time, I didn't actually plan to go on a blind date with him, just to treat him to a meal as a formal thank you. After all, although our Grace family had a bit of money, in terms of family background, we couldn't compare to a military family legacy like Caleb's. The blind date location was the cafe, owned by the Marcus family. I didn't expect to run into Marcus and Tiffany there. Behind them was a rather disheveled young man. Tiffany giggled and said, "Marcus, you're excellent at leading troops in the military. I'm entrusting my brother to you." Marcus smiled and playfully tapped her nose. "Don't worry, your brother is my brother. My mom said she'll give this cafe to my future wife as a welcoming gift. We'll register our marriage in a few days, and then I'll have my mom transfer ownership of the cafe to you so your brother can gain some experience running it." Eleanor was shaking with rage and slammed her hand on the table. "I'm not dead yet, and my property isn't yours to decide. What welcoming gift for a daughter-in-law? Bah! What shameless hussy dares to call herself my daughter-in-law?" Seemingly not expecting Eleanor to be there, a flicker of embarrassment crossed Marcus's face, then he said, his voice flat, "Mom, you and Dad only have one son, me. Who else would you give your assets to?" Eleanor sneered, then suddenly pulled me to her side. "Who told you that your father and I only have one child? Formal notice, your father and I plan to adopt Gracie as our daughter. From now on, Gracie will also have a share of the Marcus family's assets. Oh, and by the way, this cafe you just mentioned? I've already decided to transfer its ownership to Gracie. If you want to curry favor with your wife and future brother-in-law, earn your own money and open one." Marcus's eyes darkened, and his icy glare fell on me. "Grace, I remember warning you not to humiliate Tiffany again. If you insist on opposing me, aren't you afraid you'll what? Is Marcus abusing his power and openly threatening a civilian?" Caleb said coldly, stepping out of the private room. Marcus's face changed. Colonel, what are you doing here? Caleb glanced at me and smiled. A blind date. Marcus looked at me, then at Caleb, and suddenly his face darkened. Grace, are you so eager to get revenge on me? So eager that you'll just pick any man for a blind date? Do you even know who he is? The family is not one your background can marry into. Caleb walked to my side, interrupting Marcus's monologue. Captain, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have much acquaintance. And who I go on a blind date with doesn't seem to be any of your business, does it? Besides, I think Miss Grace is wonderful, and there's no question of marrying up or down between us. Marcus's face turned ashen, his eyes filled with disgust as he looked at me. Grace, tell me honestly, have you been secretly with Caleb all along? Tiffany gasped softly, covering her mouth, with a look of sudden realization. No wonder Miss Grace didn't look angry at all that day when Marcus said he wanted to break off the engagement with her. So, Miss Grace had already found a new partner. Huh, Colonel's rank is indeed higher than Marcus's. No wonder Miss Grace would fall for someone else. Saying this, Tiffany cast a glance at me, barely concealing her jealousy. She hadn't expected that right after I broke off my engagement with Marcus, I could immediately go on a blind date with a man even more outstanding than Marcus. Why did all the good men belong to Grace? Tiffany's words successfully ignited Marcus's fury. He reached out to grab my arm, but Caleb quickly pulled me behind him, looking at Marcus with icy eyes. Captain, the military taught you these skills not to bully civilians. Marcus retorted angrily, she's not a civilian, she's my fiancée. I scoffed softly, Marcus, do I need to remind you? We've already broken off our engagement, and you were the one who initiated it. Marcus insisted on blocking my way, but Eleanor suddenly raised her arm and slapped him hard. You unfilial son. How dare you make a scene on my property? Get out with the other woman. Manager, remember these three faces. Blacklist them. From now on, all Serenity cafes owned by the Marcus family refuse to serve these three people. Marcus looked at Eleanor in disbelief. Mom, I'm your son. Eleanor looked at him with profound disappointment. Marcus, when you gave up inheriting the family business and insisted on applying to military academy, you said you wanted to serve your country and defend your homeland. These past few years, your father, Gracie, and I have all been proud of you, but what about you? When did you become like this? I don't believe you can't tell that this woman is sowing discord, yet you act as if you're blind, unable to distinguish right from wrong, and bully the girl you grew up with as childhood sweethearts, all for this woman. Marcus, you will definitely regret this. With that, Eleanor took Caleb and me into the private room, and she actually had the security guards escort Marcus and Tiffany out. I never expected that Caleb and I would progress so quickly. He told me he had 6 days of leave left, and this time, he had received strict orders from his organization. They required him to settle down, otherwise, they would arrange a blind date for him. Seeing his pitiful expression, like he was being forced into something against his will, I giggled. Do you have your ID with you? If so, let's go register our marriage now. When we went to register our marriage, Caleb, as if prepared, magically pulled out a pair of wedding rings. Simple gold band rings, without any logos, but perfectly suited for our professions. After registering our marriage, it only then occurred to me that I hadn't informed my parents about such a big event in advance. Caleb chuckled as he opened the passenger car door for me. Let's go. I've already informed both sets of our parents. They're already at the hotel. Let's head there quickly, we can discuss our wedding plans over dinner. The dinner location was the Spoon, owned by my family. It wasn't particularly fancy, but you could taste many specialty dishes only known to locals. Caleb's father, whom I had only seen on TV before, appeared stern and formidable on screen. I didn't expect him to be such a childish old man in private. He debated fish rearing techniques with my father for an hour because the koi in the bistro's decorative pond were too fat. My father insisted that koi should be plump to symbolize good fortune. Caleb's father believed that only well-proportioned koi could be healthy and lively. Caleb's mother held my hand and kept pressing various family heirlooms into my hands. This is the fish pendant passed down from Caleb's maternal grandmother. This is the jade bracelet passed down from Caleb's paternal grandmother. This is a mother-of-pearl jewelry box I had a master artisan handcraft. It's for your jewelry later. Everyone had a wonderful time over dinner. Both families agreed to hold the wedding before Caleb's leave ended, and the honeymoon would be made up for during his next vacation. As we were leaving, we actually ran into Marcus in the lobby, arguing with the cashier. Marcus held a black, gold-embossed VIP card, questioning the cashier why it couldn't be used. The cashier said with an apologetic look, "Sir, this card was deactivated a few days ago." Marcus was enraged. "How is that possible? This card was personally issued to me by your boss." "Exactly, which is why after we broke off our engagement, I personally called and had it deactivated for you," I explained with a smile behind him. Marcus spun around, about to lash out at me, but suddenly saw my parents behind me, and his face instantly flushed crimson. Tiffany stood meekly behind Marcus, her eyes filled with jello. You see as she watched me. Tyler, Tiffany's brother, banged on the table and threatened the cashier. "Do you know who my brother-in-law is? It would scare you to death. Hurry up and comp our meal, and pack 2 bottles of your most expensive red wine. Otherwise, when my brother-in-law becomes the owner, you'll be the first one he fires." Roger, Tiffany's father, also chimed in, "Pack 2 more bottles, no, a case of premium spirit." "Enough," Marcus roared. Tiffany immediately red-eyed. "Marcus, it's all my fault. If only I had a good family background like Ms. Grace, I wouldn't have to trouble you so much, but Grace is really something. Even though you broke off your engagement, you're still good friends who grew up together. How could she deactivate your card without even notifying you?" Tiffany looked up, perfectly revealing her aggrieved large eyes. But this time, Marcus did not follow her lead and scold me. I scoffed softly. "Nurse, let me tell you why I deactivated Captain's card without notifying him. Because that card was never his to begin with. This is a family discount card our Grace family specially issues for family members. Since Marcus has already broken off his engagement with me, it's a bit unreasonable for him to still use our Grace family's family discount card, wouldn't you agree?" Tiffany looked at me indignantly, about to say something more, when Marcus suddenly turned around and glared fiercely at her. "Enough. I'm going to pay the bill. You take them to the parking lot and wait for me." Tiffany, her face red, tugged at her parents and brother. Martha pinched her hard, deliberately raising her voice to scold. "Didn't you say your son-in-law was very capable, with countless VIP cards, and didn't have to pay when eating out or shopping anywhere? I was still planning to buy some gold and diamond jewelry to show off to our relatives. Now what? Are we still buying them or not?" Marcus lowered his head, and the speed at which he used contactless payment noticeably increased. I sighed inwardly. Before, I considered that military pay wasn't much, and Marcus couldn't always ask my parents for money when socializing. So, I had family discount cards for all malls, hotels, and luxury stores owned by the Grace family issued to Marcus. After the breakup, because I didn't want to keep those cards, as it felt unsettling, I called someone to deactivate all of Marcus's family discount cards. I thought Marcus wouldn't use those cards after we broke up, but I didn't expect him to still try to use them. In that moment, the idealized view of a childhood sweetheart that had lasted for over a decade shattered into a million pieces before me. The next time I saw Marcus was at Caleb and my wedding. Seeing me in my wedding dress, standing side by side with Caleb, I don't know why, but I always felt Marcus's gaze held a hint of somberness and regret. I scoffed softly. What did he have to regret? He was the one who initiated the breakup, and now, his beloved nurse, dressed in an exquisite and elegant dress, stood by his side. Because my in-laws and Caleb were public officials, according to regulations, our wedding couldn't be too extravagant. We only invited close relatives and friends, setting up 3 or 4 tables for a family dinner at our own hotel. Entering the private room, seeing only a few tables of guests, Tiffany immediately covered her mouth, revealing a surprised expression. "Marcus, didn't I hear that both the bride's and groom's families are prominent families? Why is the wedding so shabby?" "I thought an heiress like Ms. Grace would at least have a grand wedding," Marcus interrupted her irritably. "Don't talk nonsense. The guests here today are not ordinary people." To be honest, I was quite surprised to see him with Tiffany. Because just a moment ago, uncle and aunt had already come to the wedding representing the Marcus family. Eleanor even told me that because Marcus and I had once been engaged, to avoid making the groom uncomfortable, they specifically didn't have Marcus come today. Yet, he showed up anyway, and brought Tiffany with him. What was he trying to do? Caleb suddenly leaned into my ear and whispered, "Marcus heard that his colonel would also be here today, so he specifically came to make an appearance. He violated regulations in the conflict by taking Tiffany shopping in an enemy-occupied zone and was reported. He probably doesn't want to face disciplinary action, so he came to network while the high-ranking officers are all here today." Hearing's words, I looked at Marcus with mixed emotions. He really seemed to have changed. He of the past was upright and brave, with a strong sense of justice, a steadfast, honorable soldier. But the current Marcus was holding a glass, in an almost subservient manner, leading Tiffany to toast the high-ranking officers table by table. I suddenly felt nauseated and turned away from him. But to my surprise, Tiffany pulled Marcus and walked towards our table. Driven by some unknown motive, Tiffany feigned generosity and said to Caleb, "Colonel, today, you really should toast our Marcus. If hadn't broken off his engagement with Ms. Grace, you and Ms. Grace wouldn't have formed this union, would you?" Marcus's face changed, and he sharply pulled Tiffany. "Tiffany, you're drunk and talking nonsense. Go home now." Caleb stood up, raised his glass, and stopped Marcus. "Oh, no, I actually think Miss Tiffany is right. If Marcus hadn't broken off his engagement with Gracie, it wouldn't have been my turn to pick up the pieces. Captain, I'll toast you, and thank you." A chorus of ambiguous laughter filled the air. Tiffany, believing she had lightened the mood, also chuckled twice. Suddenly, Marcus turned around and slapped Tiffany hard across the face. Tiffany clutched her face, looking at Marcus in disbelief. "Marcus, why did you hit me?" Marcus closed his eyes, squeezing out 2 words through gritted teeth, "Idiot." Then, he grabbed Tiffany's arm and dragged her out of the private room without looking back. Eleanor clutched her chest, repeatedly cursing, "A bad wife can ruin 3 generations. Our family will eventually be ruined by these 2 fools." William also felt too embarrassed to stay, so he pulled Eleanor, quickly apologized, and left. After that day, I never saw Marcus again. I heard that the result of his disciplinary action came down. He was transferred from his post, returned to his original military unit, and demoted 2 ranks. Tiffany was unwilling to let her wealthy catch slip away, so she actually resigned from her nursing job at the hospital and followed Marcus to the city where his military unit was stationed, as a military spouse. But she didn't expect that Marcus, after his demotion, didn't have the eligibility to accompany a service member. Tiffany had no job, so she had Marcus rent a house for her. To pass the time, Tiffany also registered a social media account, updating her daily life accompanying Marcus while he served in the military. Initially, because of Tiffany's persona as a sweet, devoted wife, and Marcus's handsome face, her account gained tens of thousands of followers. But she wasn't content with mere tens of thousands of followers. For traffic, Tiffany actually secretly hid a hidden camera in her clothes and visited Marcus at the military under the guise of a family member, then edited all the videos she filmed inside the military and uploaded them to the internet. Tiffany became a sensation. But it was because netizens were shaming her on trending topics. Due to this confidentiality breach, Tiffany's newly popular social media account was immediately and permanently banned by the platform. Marcus was also implicated and is reportedly suspended from duty and under investigation. 2 months later, Caleb and I returned from our honeymoon at the and actually ran into Marcus and Tiffany at the mall. Tiffany, heavily pregnant, stumbled behind Marcus, carrying several shopping bags. "Marcus, my stomach hurts a bit. Can you walk slower and help me with these bags?" Marcus, with his hands in his pockets, looked at her with a cold voice. "Didn't you insist on coming shopping? Since it was your choice, you have to bear the consequences yourself." Tiffany's face turned pale, and she bit her lip, carrying her numerous bags as she followed him. Seeing this, I suddenly felt grateful. Grateful that I hadn't married Marcus. Grateful that I married the right person. Caleb went to customer service to get a free parking voucher, then walked to my side, carrying numerous bags. "Honey, let's go home." I linked my arm through Caleb's and smiled as I leaned against his shoulder. "Okay, let's go home." Marcus's epilogue Grace in a white wedding dress, smiling and standing beside Caleb, I regretted it. I thought I loved Tiffany, and she had saved my life. We had faced life and death together on the battlefield, so we were destined by heaven to be together. But later, they told me that when I had contracted a deadly virus in the conflict, it was Grace who flew to Europe overnight, pulled strings and spent a fortune everywhere, to get me those 3 doses of life-saving medication. The irony was, I had always believed that I recovered my life that time because of Tiffany's sleepless care. Tiffany lied to me. She deliberately concealed the truth about the life-saving medication from me. But by the time I learned the truth, it was too late. Gracie agreed to break off the engagement and quickly registered her marriage with another man. I knew that man. He was the youngest colonel in the military, with distinguished military service and great promise. I knew I should have smiled and wished her well. After all, we were once the best of childhood sweethearts. But soon, I discovered that after Gracie left, my life became a mess. To pay off the $3 million debt for Tiffany, I sold the marital home my parents had prepared for me, and all my savings from these past years were gone too. My parents were furious with me for being so blind as to abandon Gracie, and they cancelled my supplementary card. I could barely support Tiffany and myself on a little over 10,000 in monthly allowances, but showed no understanding of my difficulties. She insisted I find her brother a respectable job. I took the Tiffany family to my family's Serenity Cafe, only to be told that my mother had already transferred ownership of the cafe to Gracie. Tiffany then brought her parents and brother over, and the whole family demanded fine dining and expensive drinks every day. The small allowance in my account quickly ran out. That's when I suddenly remembered the family discount cards Gracie used to give me. I shamelessly took the Tiffany family to the Spoon, owned by the Grace family. To my surprise, when it was time to pay, the cashier informed me that the family discount card had been cancelled days ago. Calculating the timing, it was exactly the day after Gracie and I called off our engagement. What was worse, a few days later, the military's disciplinary decision came down. Because had pestered me that time, insisting on going to a commercial district in enemy-occupied territory to buy imported cosmetics, I couldn't resist her persistent pleas. So, I went with her in plain clothes, only to find out later that someone had reported me. I became the first person from the peacekeeping mission to be sent back to my original unit for violating regulations. My future was completely ruined. Heartbroken by all of this, I returned to my original unit, but clung to me like a persistent ghost, even quitting her nursing job, constantly claiming she wanted to join the military with me and endure hardship together. In that moment, I finally understood what Grace had told me before. A good relationship shouldn't be about mutual depletion, but about mutual empowerment. I was fed up with Tiffany's relentless harassment, so I used the EXC use of being too busy with training and hid in the military, refusing to see her. But I never imagined Tiffany would use her status as a military spouse to come looking for me at the unit repeatedly. She even secretly filmed many videos from inside the military and uploaded them online. After the incident came to light, I was immediately suspended by the military for investigation, and Tiffany was detained on suspicion of leaking classified information. After the matter blew up on social media, as expected, I was discharged from the military. I wanted to divorce Tiffany, but she claimed she was pregnant. Using her pregnancy as leverage, Tiffany demanded I take her back to my family's home, insisting my parents pay her a $99,000 bridal settlement, plus buy a house for her brother and one for her parents. My parents smirked, called the neighborhood security, and had us kicked out of the house. I didn't resist, I simply rented a small, cheap apartment elsewhere. Tiffany's dream of marrying into wealth was utterly shattered, and she spent every day in the rented apartment cursing everyone. After being discharged from the military, my record was stained, and I couldn't find a job, so I resorted to fighting on the underground boxing circuit. When, once again heavily pregnant, threatened me with the child and demanded I go back to my family's home for money, I clenched my fist and slammed it hard into her visibly swollen belly. Due to severe hemorrhaging, Tiffany lost both the child and her uterus. I was arrested on the spot by the police. I didn't resist in the slightest. Perhaps, for me, prison was the best place for the rest of my life. One day, much later, I saw news of Grace accepting an award on the prison television. Seeing me staring intently, a fellow inmate teased me, asking if I wanted to get married. I smiled and softly said to myself, the woman on TV who received the international award had almost become my wife. If I had married Grace back, then, would everything have turned out differently? Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.